Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Jen Thompson, and I want to thank you for tuning in to our third episode of the Return to Jesus podcast. We're on our first season, which is focusing on all things grace. And I can't wait to dive into today's conversation with my guest and friend, the incredibly talented Craig Wayne Boyd. So to give you a little background information on Craig Wayne Boyd is a renowned country music artist and singer-songwriter, best known for his soulful voice, compelling songwriting, and standout performance style. Born in Mesquite, Texas, Boyd gained widespread recognition as the winner of the 7th season of The Voice in 2014, where he was mentored by country music icon Blake Shelton. His victory on the popular competition show catapulted him into the spotlight, allowing him to share his blend of classic country, southern rock, and soulful influences with a larger audience. His musical journey began at the young age of 4, which when I read that, I was like, whoa, that's so young. That's amazing. 4, shaped by the rich traditions of country and gospel music. He perfected his craft under Steeples, which opened doors to tour life as a Christian rock bassist. However, he had a charisma and bellowing vocals of a frontman, but his southern twang meant only one thing: a move to Nashville. Craig Wayne Boyd signed a publishing deal with EMI shortly upon arrival. When he wasn't putting pen to paper and song to words, he was busy logging more than 1,000 shows in 4 years, stopping at any and every radio station he could. He was opening for acts like Jamie Johnson, Randy Houser, Sarah Evans, Brad Paisley, and more. Then it happened. After years of hoofing it all over the country, fate stepped in and dealt him a sweet hand. Craig's remarkable journey on The Voice was marked by his powerful performances and authentic storytelling. His charismatic stage presence and emotional depth endeared him to a vast fan base across the nation. The unforgettable rendition of classics like The Old Rugged Cross and Some Kind of Wonderful showcased his versatility as an artist. Blake Shelton and Craig Wayne Boyd rocked boots on as millions watched and voted for their winner. Days after his victory, Craig debuted as #1 on Billboard with My Baby's Got a Smile on Her Face, tying Garth Brooks for the honor, and recently Morgan Wallen done the same. Beyond his musical achievements, Craig is known for his genuine humility and dedication to his craft. He has guest hosted or appeared on Today In Nashville, the Great American Food Truck Challenge, Hallmark Channel's Home and Family, The Ellen Show, Jimmy Fallon, Fox, Good Morning America, La La Land, Today's TMZ, All Access Hollywood, and more. His most prized musical accomplishment is playing the Grand Ole Opry 25 plus times, whether jamming with his 5 children, folks, playing back under the steeples on his off Sundays, or entertaining his fan club on the road. He remains a beloved figure in the country music community, inspiring aspiring artists with his talent and down-to-earth personality. Craig Wayne Boyd's story is one of talent and stick-to-itiveness. With album number 6 well on its way, he's ready to unleash his most real, raw country yet. Craig, welcome.
I am tired after hearing you say all of that.
So many wonderful things.
Oh my goodness.
The thing is, you're my friend, right? I love your family so much.
Mhm.
So to read about all of these incredible things that you've done, it just brings my heart so much joy, because you are so humble, and it's just good for people to hear all these wonderful things that you've accomplished. So it was a joy to share, and I'm so happy you're
Well,
here.
thank you. Yeah, it's amazing to. I guess I'm such a nose to the grindstone type of guy that I don't take the accolades very easy.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to accept it. It's like I got more to do.
Yeah, I get that. It's hard sometimes to hear those things, but yeah, it's very exciting to share them. And I want to say, before we start off, you and I talked a little bit beforehand, and for everybody listening, just so you know how this podcast works, the first series of the questions are going to be more faith-based questions. They're going to be specifically talking about spiritual habits and rhythms you have built into your days. We are all very busy. As I mentioned, you have 5 kids. I have 4 kids. You're on the road. There's just a lot to juggle and manage. And I think sometimes we erroneously think that the only way to meet with the Lord is on Sunday at church or in a small group or maybe during quiet time, and there's nothing wrong with those things. Like, we absolutely meet with God in those places, but it's so much more. It's a personal relationship. It's small little things, prayers you say throughout the day, just saying, whispering the name of Jesus, whatever it may be, singing a song, whatever it is. I think it's just really encouraging to hear about different ways that people connect with God. So that's what the first part of the questions will be about. And then the second are going to be specifically pertaining to you and your career and how you experience grace through your music and the words you share, your beautiful lyrics you write. So ready? We'll get started if you're ready.
I think most of my prayer time comes in when my drummer takes over driving. But
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. All right. Mental note, never ride in the car with your drummer. Okay. So the first question I have for you, Craig, when you hear the words return to Jesus, what does that mean to you? And what would that return look like to you personally in your own life?
for me, I had one of those light bulb above the head moments when I was on The Voice, and it was interesting that I was able to share that with the entire world. I grew up in a family that was extremely religious, arguably almost dogmatic, and that pushed me over the edge via many other things through my life. But in my early teens or my late teens, I would say, I ran from God, from the calling, from the church. I felt like I was pushed away by the church. And so, me coming back to Jesus in my life was realizing that he was not the church, he was not religion, that there was an actual relationship that I had to find with him, and realizing the difference between the two things. And for me personally, that's what coming to Jesus would be for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can very much relate to that. In the faith that I grew up in when I was younger, I had some woundings from my church too. And I very much associated my faith only with that for a long time until, like you said, just discovering what that personal relationship is and realizing that you can heal from those wounds and that God wants us to heal from those wounds. And there is so much more to the relationship than I think sometimes we realize, especially when we're young. I mean, a lot of what we're learning, it's just what we're hearing at church, and it's hard to separate the two, really.
Mhm.
So that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so another question for you in relation to your faith. What are some spiritual practices and habits that you have incorporated into your life that work for you in the busy season you find yourself in right now? And also, are there any practices that you held tight that you had to let go of? So, like, what's working for you and maybe what's not so much anymore?
I mean, I guess we all need to increase our conversations with God. For me, I find mine a lot of times. I'm a night driver, so I usually take first shifts. I'm at the present not running with a bus driver. We're splitting those times in between the band. Hence the reason I was making the joke about my drummer taking over, and that's when I get a lot of prayer. But on a serious note, it's those 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm on the road and able to get into my own thoughts and what can I do better. I guess I'm an analytical person, sometimes to a fault, but I'm always analyzing where I'm at and what can I do better and what can I take to the next level. And those are the times that I'm able to spend talking with God about those things also.
Yeah, there is something very special about driving time. I agree with that. Pat and I, like I said before, we have 4 children and it's expensive to fly anywhere. So we've always
Mhm.
driven. When our family goes on vacation, we drive and we drive through the night. Like, Pat and I take shifts driving through the night. And so while I'm not doing it nearly as much as you are, I can relate. There is something really special about that time when you're on the road and it's quiet and every place you pass except for the gas station where there's an employee working. Most people are
Mhm.
sleeping. And it's hard to find that quiet in our busy days. It's hard to find it.
No,
So
as you mentioned, I'm in a household full of 5 kids and a beautiful wife who helps, pretty much wrangles the whole thing. But due to that, I mean, you can't have a house large enough to get away from from all of that. And so it's like rather go sit out in your vehicle and pray that nobody finds you, or you have to do it when everyone's asleep. And that's for me. That's when I've been able to find that. And incidentally, for me, being a traveler, world traveler, and that is my work, is taking music and things out to other people. So that's when I'm able to find those times.
That's awesome. Okay, so one more question on the faith side before we hop into your amazing career and all that you're doing, getting your music out into the world. Because this season is focusing specifically on grace, and grace can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. I'm curious, when you hear the word grace, what does that mean to you specifically?
For me, it's something that I experience daily, and it's usually coming from my wife. I'm begging her to have grace with me for forgetting to do things or something of the sort. And I think that really does relate to our spiritual walk in the same vein, is that there are things that we know that we are supposed to do, but then we slip and we forget. And those things are what I feel like are the grace. We don't deserve the love or deserve the forgiveness that we're automatically allotted. And I find that with my wife, she automatically forgives me, which is a rarity, in some people's lives. But I think she understands where I'm coming from. But yeah, that's to me, that's one of those. That's what I associate grace with.
I love that you said that about Taylor. So, as I said earlier, Craig and Taylor are friends of ours, family friends, and your marriage is a beautiful picture of grace. You know how you see some couples and you just are like, oh, like they've got it. Like they just really love each other and enjoy each other. And that is something that every time we are with you guys, I love being with your family because that love and that grace that you have, it shows. So I love that you said that she points you back to and reminds you of the love of God. Like she is a tangible example in your life of that grace. That's how Pat is for me too, all of the time. I feel like he points me back to Christ because he's so quick to forgive me. He doesn't bring my wrongs up again and again and again. He's not holding on to stuff. So I love that. I love that that is the picture of grace that you have, that it comes from your marriage. And I'm not surprised that you said that because as your friends, that's what you see. You see that play out. Excited to share with you that I have written a book titled Return to Jesus, an invitation to abide with him in every beautiful, stressful, or tedious moment. It is a dream come true, and I could not be more thrilled to share with you that this book is available online at stores such as Target, Walmart, Amazon, Christian Books, and more. The book will be available on April 15th, 2025 to purchase in store as well. And I just really appreciate your support. It means the world to me. I could not do this without you. And I'm just so very grateful. So be sure to grab your copy today. Again, it's Return to Jesus, an invitation to abide with him in every beautiful, stressful, or tedious moment. So awesome. All right. Well, we're going to move on to the music specific questions, which I am so excited to get into also. So, Craig, as I said earlier, you've traveled the world. I know recently you've been to I think Norway and Australia. You're in Australia. I feel like a lot you're in Australia. Are you in Australia a lot?
Um, I've only been there one time, but I'm going back in January, and again for 2025 I'll be over there a couple of times.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
I'm very
It's
yeah.
exciting. So I want to hear more just about your journey as a singer and songwriter. So you started when you were 4. Can you tell me about some of the highlights of your journey? And when you think about that journey, how does grace come into play? How do you? tie grace into your journey as a singer and songwriter?
I tend to be a guy that to make any kind of move in life in general, not just only my musical career, but in life in general, is it takes a 2x4 across the forehead for me to pay attention. So um, I'm not sure how that ties into grace, but that is just who I am as a person. So that being said, there's a lot of dramatic things and over the top things that have happened in my life to make me make moves, to the sense of I got married very young, and me coming home to a house that we had only been in for about a year, that I had built it. I was only 23 years old building my first house, and to come home to that house being empty and that be the 2x4 across the forehead that says, "Hey, Craig, you need to go to Nashville,"
Mhm.
and to bring my musical career to Nashville rather than just being in Texas. To devastating breakups that pushed me to go to The Voice. That was, probably mostly my fault, but it was making dumb decisions and then having to follow up with those consequences that caused me to make the decision to go to The Voice because there was no other options out there for me at the time. So, yeah, I've spent a lot of my career in life in general having 2x4s across the forehead and said, "All right, man, this is what you got to go do." And those things, I feel like I've stepped in a lot of junk and come out smelling like a rose. And I think maybe that's God's grace on me that has allowed that to happen.
Absolutely. I think that one of the beautiful things about the 2x4 and the junk that ends up smelling like a rose is that it's hard when we're in those hard times. Like, I'm sure when you came home to the empty house and when you had the devastating breakup, and even when you're moving from Texas to Nashville, that's a huge transition. I think sometimes it's hard in those moments to see the good because it's painful and those things hurt. And I think the most beautiful thing, and like you said, a picture of grace is then when you come to the other side of it and you're like, oh, this horrible road, this challenging road that I had to walk led me down this path that maybe I never would have taken had this hard thing happened. So do you feel like I'm kind of going off my questions here, but I'm just curious. Like, do you feel like having those experiences then have helped you when you are hit, like, again, like when you feel that the 2x4 hitting you in the face, does it help because you have had that happen and you can see, like, okay, God might turn this into something beautiful, or God will turn this into something beautiful?
Can't say that I've always been of the mindset or had the clarity, or as the song says, had my eyes opened from being blind. I think it's been more of this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
And I hope that everything is good on the other side. And being so devastated that you have to give it up to God because there is no other option. It's like here's all I have. I'm praying that you have this, and the blessing part of it is that He always has, and He always will.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I mean, I just think that's the reassurance. It's not that you like the hard things. I'm not by any means saying that you have to like the hard things you're going through, because you don't and you shouldn't. But you have to walk through stuff to get to the other side. You don't want to bypass it or ignore it. But just the fact, like you said, you've seen his goodness on the other side, and then that gives you something to hold on to in those moments.
A lot of the times, it's when you do start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel that you realize that He had you all along.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That is so true. That is absolutely true. I'm very encouraging. Okay. So, in addition to being an incredibly talented musician, you also are a husband, a wonderful father, as we said, to five amazing children. So, how do you balance travel and family life? And when you think of all that you do, which is a whole lot, how does grace fit into that picture?
I think, goodness, there's a lot. it's it is a lot. There are moments of each thing being the forefront, which is great. Um, not only is my musical career the career, but it's also what supports all of the rest of it. So that is definitely in the forefront a lot of times. But the one thing I try to balance on that is trying to be, and I'm not always, but I do my best at being present when I am home. And that's the kicker, is trying to put the work aside. It's hard because nowadays we have a cell phone that all of our emails and text messages, everything comes in one spot, and we do this the whole time, and it really is hard. And I turned on the timer on my iPhone now so that I know how much time I'm spending on the dang thing, and it's a goal every week to lessen that amount of time that I'm doing. And I guess the grace would be that my kids understanding, and we try to, every single time that we sit down for food or a meal, phones are put away, and we do sit down every single night together, and everyone goes around the table and they say what the worst thing was for their day and the best thing that happened for their day. Even the 3-year-old does this, and sometimes that is the candy that she got or that she took from the candy bowl, and sometimes it's something random. But you know how she is. She's a character.
Cute.
But those are the things that we try to implement in our lives, and it helps us to have that grace with each other.
Well, and you're modeling so many wonderful things for your children. I mean, even the fact that you try to be present and you are present in this day and age when it is so hard. It's not like we're back in the 90s when I grew up, when people left work and they came home, and the only way somebody's going to get a hold of you is if they call your house. That's only going to happen in case of an emergency. And,
Mhm.
I see it with Pat and even myself as I'm starting to work more. It's harder. It gets harder and harder to shut that off. So I love that you actually set a timer. That is such a practical thing to do, and what a great thing to model to your children, because I mean, I see it with my own kids. I think it's so much harder for them to be off the devices than it is even for us. I think that's great. And we do that. We call them highs and lows. We do that with our family too. Every night at dinner, we sit around the table and everybody goes around, and it's such a precious time to hear about what everybody's going through. It's such a wonderful, intentional time. I love that even little Blakely does it. That's real cute.
Yeah, I do feel like it's important, as obviously you do too. Is to know what's going on in your kids' lives, your spouse's life, something that could be bothering them that we have not paid attention to, or we just didn't recognize. They've hidden well.
Yeah.
To have that so that we can give grace to each other, and that we can show compassion and love. I think that's good.
Yeah. And it is, like you said, a good way to show grace, because we might not even know that somebody had a really hard thing happen at school. Maybe they come home and they're a little off. But then when they say, like, oh, this is the bad thing that happened, then it's like, oh, that's why, you are maybe snapping, or it is. It's finding out those things does allow for so much grace for all of us. So I love it. You're doing a
I,
fantastic job.
I will say my Boston, who is our 4-year-old, just recently started pre-K last year, or last week was his first week of pre-K. And it cracks me up. And don't get me wrong, we have such a great school here in Williamson County and at Sunset Elementary. But he comes in, and one of his statements was, we were asking what happened at school, and all. He's like, "Oh, well, one kid got in trouble for saying a bad word," and I was like, "Okay, well, you got to tell me what it was." He said, "Well, it started with what the? It started with what the?" I was like, "All right, I got you."
You're like, all right, buddy, we got
You never know.
it.
You never know what you're going to get around the table when you have your highs and lows.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. I love it. Oh, all right. Awesome. Okay. So, Craig, on to the next question. I am very excited to hear this. What are you currently working on?
I am currently working on an album. It's taken me about a year and a half or so to get this album together for many reasons. For one, I was revamping everything. I had taken kind of sabbatical from the solo career and took about a 2-year stint in a vocal group called Texas Hill. Very proud of the product that we put together, but have spent the past year and a half or so working on a new album, and we were planning on trying to get it out for this fall, this early winter, about right now. I don't see that happening. I'm still one or two songs shy that I'm determined to have on this album, so I want to make sure that we get those done. So I'm hoping I can get that done over the holidays and have this album out in January or February.
That's awesome. Are you writing most of the songs? Are they mostly your originals?
There will be one or two that are not written by me. The rest of it is all stuff that I've written. And I've tried to, and heck, I'm writing all the time. I got a couple of writing appointments this week that I'll sit down and just be intentional about writing new music. I have some good storylines that I'm wanting to touch on, and that's been the crazy part of doing that stuff is that you you have a storyline and you might write it 3 or 4 different ways until you find the version of it that you want to put out that's said the best. So yeah, that's the stuff that I've been doing right now.
So where do you find your inspiration for your songs? Is it a lot of like personal experience? Is it just things you observe? Like when you say you're going through the storyline, what's your inspiration for the stories?
Things from the past, things from the present. Um, I mean, little things that even out you're out on the golf course and you hear someone say something and it's like, oh wait, there's a song in that line. Just various things that pop into to my brain, and then I put it into uh, obviously into my cell phone list, and this is all the story thoughts that I have. To Most recently, been I'm working on a song with some good friends. It's taking a minute because to get the story completely correct, it's but it goes back to my grandmother's life. I wanted to capture some things that I realized that there was a great storyline, an underlying thread with um, someone that had been in her life and she had been engaged to before she met my grandpa. And
Oh,
when she passed away, we found the love letters, and he was there at the funeral and things like that. And it was just like there's definitely a story here that I want to capture, and it's a piece of history, not only for me but for in my family and things. So I'm really being very careful with the story to tell it how it should, how I feel like it should be told.
that is so cool. I can't wait to hear that story. That sounds like a really interesting story. And I very much also appreciate that. I have one of the things when my grandmother, when Gammy passed away, I was given all of the letters that she and my grandfather had written each other from when they were courting, before they were married, to when they were engaged,
Hmm.
to when he was overseas at war, and or she had small children at home. Um, yeah, it's they've just been really fascinating just to get this other glimpse of their lives that
Hmm.
no concept at all, as their grandchild. So that sounds very cool. And you mentioned collaboration. So are you collaborating with a lot of people on this new album?
Um, it's not just for this album. I recently went in with a couple of other Texas artists and have been part of the Little Texas tribute album
Oh,
with their song called "What
Texas.
Might Have Been." That just came out, I believe, a week or two ago. So you guys can find me on that album. I've recently put out a song with a Clay Airy, who's out of Oklahoma, Texas country artist. And I recently recorded some things with the winner of The Voice Norway, and that should be coming out in early 2025. And we have a couple other collaborations that are scheduled on the books, and hopefully we'll have those things. And then, of course, Taylor and I are for sure going to have a song on this new album as a collab. So.
Yay! Oh, that makes me so happy. I love hearing you guys sing together. Oh, yeah, because not only do you have such a gorgeous voice, Taylor has such a beautiful voice. I love hearing you guys. And that's so cool that you're collaborating with people all over the world. I'm very excited to hear this album when it comes out. It sounds fantastic. Okay, so one more question. Well, actually, I just realized because I just looked down at my notes, and I want you to sing a little song. But before we get to that, Craig, is there anything else that you want the audience to know just about your experience with faith or grace or your music career or just anything you want us to close on before I ask you to sing for us?
I feel like what I want to say is that none of us are perfect, and we all fall short. But it's His grace that gets us through, and it is our grace. It's the grace that we give to others, which represents His love for us. And I feel like that's something that, especially in the climate that we've just went through, I think that's something that we need to do for each other and for the world, is show grace and show them God's love, because without that, we're nothing.
Absolutely beautiful. I could not think of anything more perfect other than hearing your song to end our conversation with, because you hit the nail on the head. I feel like we need it more. I mean, we always need grace, so I shouldn't say more now than ever, but I do feel like in today's climate, we are all in this together, and that grace of God covers everything. And I know I fall short all the time and I mess up all the time. And it's just the biggest gift of my life. I mean, it really and truly is to know that there's nothing, 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 nothing that can separate us from the love of Christ. And I did not live in that space for a long time. I was convinced that my mess ups and the things that I did somehow created this, unlovable like gap between us. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
that was beautiful, Craig. That was beautiful.
Wonderful.
So, would you mind singing whatever song you would like to sing for us? I just want anybody listening to hear just your incredible voice, and just I really appreciate you gifting us with a song.
Since we were talking about grace, I think we'll go back to an old hymn. I grew up with the songbooks in church, and I write in the Christian market. I have a couple of those songs out. City Point Church is recording another one that I just recently wrote. But to me, you can't really beat the old songs and the messages that they give.
On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. How I love that old cross, where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I will cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I'll lay down, and I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true. Its shame and reproach gladly bear, till He calls me someday to my home far away, where in His glory forever I'll share. So I will cherish the old rugged cross
good. When I hear you sing, it literally it gives me chills every single time I get chills. So it's absolutely beautiful. You are incredibly talented. And I am so happy that you have these wonderful things in the pipeline. And it's so great to hear all that you've accomplished. And I just appreciate you showing up today and talking about grace and your family and your career and all things. You're a wonderful human, and I love your family. So
very excited to be a part of this, and I pray and wish for you to have continued success on this. I think this is great.
Great. Thanks, Craig. I appreciate that. And where can people find you?
For all things Craig Wayne Boyd, go to craigwayneboyd.com. From there, you can find links to all my music, to the calendar that shows you where I'll be at. And hey, you never know, I'll be in your country or in your state coming up soon.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Craig. And thank you all for tuning in and listening to my conversation with Craig Wayne Boyd. We'll see you next week. Bye.
See you, Jen. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Return to Jesus podcast. I am sure you probably recognize that the song that Craig sang was not him singing into the podcast recording as I had hoped. He did sing the most beautiful song for me, Amazing Grace, and I really wish you could have heard the song that he sang because it was so incredibly beautiful. But as I said right out of the gate, I am learning, and one of the things I learned this episode is that it doesn't really work really well to record songs during the podcast. So what I did is I went ahead and inserted Craig's song, The Old Rugged Cross, from his time on The Voice. And as you heard, it is absolutely just a gorgeous, heart-melting, heartwarming song. And although it wasn't what I had originally intended, it is just a beautiful song. And I'm glad that I was able to share that with you. So, friends, thank you so much for being here. And I just want to say that if you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe. And also, for more content, you can find me at trulyyoursjen.com and on Facebook and Instagram at trulyyoursjen. Be sure to tune in next week for my conversation with my friend, the very talented, incredibly kind, amazing author, Michaela Albertson, sharing about her book, Everything I Wish I Could Tell You About Midlife, A Woman's Guide to Health in the Body You Actually Have. Friends, I am so excited for you to hear the things that Michaela has to say. I know I am personally in this season of life, and her words are such a gift. So tune in next week, and again, thanks for being here. Bye.